Okay, today, how do you value biodiversity? So let's look at this. Looking deeper into your value, our value of living things. We all place value for different reasons. Here are the four main ways we value species. One, environmental value. The species has a value because other organisms rely on it. Aesthetic value. Species has value because it is attractive in some way. Economic value. Species has value because there's a financial value of some sort, or an intrinsic value. It is a value in and of itself of no direct human benefit. So, thinking of those values above, which best fits your attitude towards valuing elephants? Just whichever one, environmental, aesthetic, economic, or intrinsic. Write that down. There's no right or wrong. This is your attitude, not your neighbor's. Now explain why that value best fits your attitude towards the elephants. Which of these values is easiest to argue from evidence? So, like, some of these are harder to argue, right? Like, maybe the aesthetic is harder to argue because it's attractive in some way. So, which one is easiest to argue? And why would you say that? And then I kind of gave you that answer, or at least what I would put for the next one. Which value is the most difficult to argue from the evidence? Doesn't have to be the one I said. And why would you say that? Okay, so now I'm going to read 3 paragraphs. Battles over ever decreasing land. Elephants are not only being squeezed into smaller and smaller areas, but farmers plant crops that elephants like to eat. As a result, the elephants frequently raid and destroy the crops. They can be very dangerous too. While many people in the West regard elephants with affection and admiration, the animals often inspire fear and anger to those that share the land. Elephants eat up to 450 kilograms of food a day. They are messy eaters, uprooting and scattering as much as they eat. A single elephant makes light work of an entire hectare of crops in a very short time. Consequences for the local people. Small farmers, the often desperately poor and already economically and nutritionally vulnerable people, forced by circumstances to encroach in the elephant habitat, can lose their entire livelihood overnight from one elephant raid. Large agriculture is also affected. In the largest palm oil producing province of Indonesia, Riau, losses due to elephant damage of oil palm plantations and timber estates are estimated to be around 105 million US dollars a year. People are also often injured and killed. In India, over 100 people are killed by elephants every year, and over 200 people have been killed in Kenya in the last 7 years. Elephants are often killed in retaliation. Wildlife authorities in Kenya shoot between 50 and 120 problem elephants every year, and dozens of elephants are poisoned each year in the oil palm plantations in Indonesia. Over the last 100 years, elephant populations have declined from 3.3 to 5 million to 470,000 to 690,000, and Asian elephant populations have declined from 100,000 to between 35,000 and 50,000. Habitat loss and conflict with people are among the biggest threats to their continued survival. According to this article, what is the biggest was causing the biggest decline in the elephants? That should be an easy one. Go back and look. What is causing the decline in the elephants according to the article? Right there in the very last sentence, right? Okay. What value is placed on the elephants according to this article? Go back to that first paragraph. And the third question, what value is placed on the cause of their decline? Go ahead, answer those two questions. That third question, again, I would say that it's more or less what is taking the place of the elephants? Why are we killing the elephants, basically? If you need that reworded to make it a little more clear. Okay, last part. Introduction. The current estimate on biodiversity is that there are more than 12,250,000 species currently on Earth. Most people tend to forget about the biodiversity in the larger view, focusing only on the plants and the vertebrates, not the smaller, less conspicuous organisms that complete our complex food webs. Healthy ecosystems require a much broader view, with many different organisms filling in the many important jobs that enable the ecosystem to function properly. Elephants serve important roles in their habitats as well. Your task. You have received a $5 million grant to put towards the conservation of species in their habitats. You will get to decide how to distribute the funds. Here are some of the questions you need to consider when creating a conservation program. Will it go to purchasing native habitat and turning it into a preserve? Will individuals in a zoo be managed for breeding? Can you create a program to educate people in the U.S. about elephants? Will the funding be used to aid the research of reproductive aid, in this case, artificial insemination, to increase elephant numbers? Can you educate local people about the importance of elephants and or educate them to generate income to avoid poaching? Do you have any other ideas on how this money could be used to help preserve elephants and or their natural habitats? Keep this in mind. A large terrestrial animal breeding program start at $1 million. And these animals are very expensive to keep. You need to put together 4 conservation programs that will address each of these values discussed above. Be conscious of the audience in which you're communicating, as sometimes different programs are designed to convince people who view elephants in different ways. How can you get your audience to buy into the program you created? What is their motivation to value the elephants? On the elephant conservation budget form provided, write a justification for each expense under the details. Why might you spend more on one money or on one program over the other? How are you spending your money? So we're talking about this. That is the table. This is upside down. There we go. That table. And when I look at that table, create one program for each of the values below. What kind of program will appeal to the people who view elephants as having an environmental value or an aesthetic value? What kind of program may be attractive to those who view elephants as having an economic value? Include as much detail as possible to present to your group tomorrow. And then there's a video here, so you can play the video on your own, or I'm going to play it to the whole class. And then I will let you work on your own.